Yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. So I'm going to feature in this particular call to the line. It went out, I think, on New Year's Day in 2023. I've been listening to some of the older episodes, and I've found quite a few amusing calls that I'd like to feature. And in this particular one, we've got a very good example of what happens when somebody with a worldview, say a Christian worldview, finds a story on the internet which they find really appealing and which proves a point that they want to make. And because it's so compelling, it's a bit like when Christians read the Bible. They don't go and check against the historical record. They don't do any kind of real research to find out whether what is claimed in the Bible is likely to be true. And they apply the same standards to stories that they find floating around on the internet. At least with the Bible, they've got some kind. They can at least refer to the claim that the scriptures are the word of God. Of course, there's no evidence to back up any of that at all. But it's even worse when they're trawling around the internet and they're going onto Christian forums, for example, picking up stories which sound impressive, which seem to be evidence of God's work in the world. And then they call an atheist show and they present that evidence. So we've got here Wildman Chris calling in to say, well, we know that God exists because we can see how God is at work in the world when people go against God. There are many, many examples when people have rejected Christ or they've committed sins and they've died either the same day or within a couple of days. And this is obviously evidence of God striking them down for going against God. We've got a anecdote which seems to be doing the rounds and has been doing the rounds for quite some time on Christian forums and Christian YouTube channels, etc. And the claim is that there is a rapper by the name of Tupac, Shakur, I think his name is, in the 90s. In 1996, he went to a fight, a boxing match. It was Evander Holyfield. He was a world heavyweight champion at that time. Tupac was a big fan of Evander. He went backstage and Evander Holyfield knew who he was. He said, look, Tupac, you are a young man, very talented. You are a shining beacon of hope for the young of this nation. Your message would be far more powerful if you would accept now Christ into your heart and become a Christian. And Tupac said, well, that may be true, but I'm not ready for that commitment yet. Maybe it's something that I will come to in the future. Reportedly, Holyfield then replied to him, you don't know what's going to happen to you tomorrow. You should accept Christ now. You never know what's going to happen to you. So as the story goes, or as the claims go, shortly after that, I think the next day or 2 days later, Tupac was shot and killed. And this story is being cited as evidence of God's work in the world, that Tupac rejected Christ and he paid the penalty, and that Evander Holyfield had actually really warned him about this. And this warning had some kind of causal link via the divine with Tupac's death. So that's the claim. We're going to look, after listening to the call, we're going to do some detective work, and I'm going to demonstrate whether that's true or not. So let's just listen to the call, or at least the last 5 minutes of the call, to see where it goes.
No, you can't just close your eyes to what happened. That's showing you.
No, I didn't close my eyes to what happened. I said, prove to me it fucking happened.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So Jimmy is referring to this this story about Holyfield and Tupac.
Man, nobody here is closing their eyes to what happened. We're saying we have no evidence, A, that it happened, and you haven't provided any evidence that your candidate explanation for what you haven't proved didn't happen or did happen. We're not closing our eyes to it. We're asking you to provide the evidence, and you are just saying it's too coincidental for it to not be God. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not evidence.
Can I please email you the fucking evidence, please?
Email me whatever the fuck you want. If you can't sit here and present evidence, what do you think an email's going to do?
Will you go over it?
I get emails too from people. I get emails from Christians saying, oh, Stuart, if only you would read this book. It's all there.
What good do you think an email is going to do if you can't provide evidence that your candidate explanation is correct?
Yeah. What did your email have?
I will waste no time watching internet glurge bullshit.
Are you afraid it might be true? That's what.
No, I'm afraid of you wasting more.
Yeah, I get this as well. Oh, Stuart, you're afraid to read the book because it will reveal the truth to you, and you just don't want to know it.
My motherfucking time. Are you afraid of answering the question about evidence?
Oh, hell no.
Then answer the question. What evidence do you have that a God exists? Evidence.
That's just like birds don't have a five south. There's something in each one of us that points that there must be a God. And
I'm sorry, Wildman Chris, but you don't understand what evidence is, and you don't understand what you should expect for evidence. Every time I ask you.
Yeah, so he's got these cases which he's claiming to be true, that people were struck down, people died shortly after rejecting God, and he can't see any other explanation for that other than that God exists. He can't imagine any other explanation. It's, I suppose it's an argument from incredulity, I suppose.
For evidence, you provide nothing.
You're never going to find scientific evidence of God. It's not going to happen.
Well, how do you know that? How do you know that, Mr. Smarty Pants? How do you know that there will never find scientific evidence for God?
That's just the way it seems now for the past 2000.
Well, that's the way it seems now. So how it seems to your ignorant ass is how you are concluding it will therefore be for all times for everybody. I feel really bad, Wildman Chris, but you don't have a path to knowledge and understanding, and clearly I can't provide one for you.
We at least review the evidence.
I've already reviewed the evidence. You've presented no evidence. There's nothing to review.
It's an email.
There's nothing you can put into an email that you couldn't have said right here.
I have a stroke. I have a stroke. That's why I do better with my written communication. I had a fucking stroke.
No, sir. Your stroke doesn't make it so that you are unable to say the words, "Here is my evidence," and then state whatever it is that you're going to write down.
Can you just please review it?
No.
Answer.
I will not allow you to waste any more of my time. Thank you. I'm not going to lie to you and say, send your email. I'll spend a couple hours on it, when I'm not, because I have no reason to think that your email is going to include anything that is more substantive than what you presented here, which is, it's just a big coincidence, therefore God. Or I can't think of any other way this could happen, therefore God. What it means, unfortunately, is that you don't understand the nature of evidence. You can send the email and maybe pray to your God that I'll read it, and pray to your God that I will find that God. But if that's what you want to do, you should have done that before you called. You don't need a call to say, will you read my email?
And it sounds like he wants us to now just read an email full of more secondhand stories he was told by somebody.
Well, that's the problem. And I get this with near-death experience people as well. I occasionally do videos on near-death experience, and of course I'm a skeptic about near-death experiences, or at least that they point to anything supernatural, the soul, or anything like that. And I've got people all the time telling me, here's a book with all the evidence. And what is it? It's just a book of claims that, this happened. Somebody was in a coma. They claim they went to heaven and they came back again. And it's just claims which really can't be verified. One can verify that the claim has been made. What one can't verify is that the actual substance of the claim maps to anything which is demonstrably supernatural. That's the whole problem. But with the Evander Holyfield claim, we're actually going to look at that right now. Okay, so let's try and sort out this Evander Holyfield claim and do a bit of investigative work to see whether it really happened. So the claim is that Tupac went to a fight, Evander Holyfield went backstage, etc. You heard me earlier on, I'm not going to go over it again, but within a couple of days he was shot dead. So there's Tupac. He was a rapper. Let's have a look at when he died. Died September the 13th, 1996, age 25. Okay, so let's remember that date, September the 13th, and let's have a look at Evander Holyfield. I've got a list here of his fights. This on Wikipedia. This is a list of all of his fights, all of his professional fights, all of his world title fights, all of his exhibition fights, etc. Let's go to 1996 and have a look. So we've got, sorry about this. If you have a look, 1996, what have we got? May 10th. Let's have a look at the next one and see whether he was fighting in September. Well, according to this, no. He fought on May 10th, 1996 in New York. And the next time he fought after that was November the 9th, 1996 in Nevada. Yes, in Nevada, which is where Tupac died. But that was November the 9th. And Tupac died on September the 13th. So if Tupac went to that fight on May the 10th, it was then May, June, July, August, September. It was like 4 months after that he was killed. But the claim was that he died shortly after the fight. So it doesn't really seem to be true, does it? There was no fight in September that Evander Holyfield could have possibly met Tupac, and therefore I would have to dismiss that claim as some kind of urban legend which is just going around doing the rounds, and Christians are appropriating it and using it as some kind of evidence. So there we are. So no, that story is, at least on the research that I've done. If you guys know of anything that you can add to it, if you've got any evidence that you can point to, if I've missed something, please let me know. So just to illustrate, there's yet another example of shoddy research that many people do, not just Christians. We see conspiracy theorists with this as well. They find a claim, they find an interesting photograph, they don't bother to do any supplementary research to verify that it's actually true, and then they just start touting it around, going around forums or calling in shows and using that as evidence. And unfortunately, other people who've got very low standards of evidence believe it, and then they start spreading it around as well, perpetuating the myth. So there we are. Let me know what you thought of that. If you've got anything constructive to add, I'd be delighted to read your comments. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.